Hey friends, it's Simon Hurley from Inklipse and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video, I actually had talked about this topic in my YouTube kind of card making rewind video that I did. And I'll link up to the top right corner of that video where I kind of recapped all of my favorite products and companies from 2019. And in that video, I talked about the gray Muse, and they make a lot of enamel pins, and it's super cool, and it's run by my friend Rubina, and she makes some amazing pins. Some of them are interactive, and I know she's got some new releases coming soon too. So I'll walk through that at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. But she also started making some stamps, which is super cool. So in today's video, I'm going to show how to use my inks with some of her stamps to do some really quick and easy coloring that looks beautiful and stunning. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so for both of the cards today, I'm using one of these awesome stamps from the Gray Muse, and this one covers like the front of a card base, which I really love, and it's this beautiful hugs floral image. And so I'm just laying this right down onto a card base, and I'm going to stamp it using my Misty because it's such a big image, and I want to make sure that it stamps perfectly, or that I have several tries to stamp it. So for this first one, I'm just using a piece of stark white cardstock, and I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool so I can do some heat embossing without any powder sticking. So I'll ink that up with some clear sticky ink, and then I'm going to stamp it down and make sure to give lots of pressure to make sure everything stamps nicely. Then I'm going to heat emboss this with clear, or you can use white, but it's going to end up being white. It kind of acts as a resist on the white cardstock, which I really like. So then I'm going to heat emboss that to make sure that it's nice and clear and shiny. And then I'm also going to do a little detail here that I wanted to show. I really love doing this. There's these Emboss It pens from Ranger, and it allows you to kind of color in with that same clear sticky ink that would be inside of the ink pad. So if you're good at lettering, you could definitely go in and letter some things, but I like to use it to just emboss certain areas when I don't have a stamp to emboss it. So I wanted to make sure that the letters in the hug sentiment stayed white or clear to make sure that it really stood out on the card. So I went in with my embossing pen, colored all of them in, and then heat embossed that with clear embossing powder as well. So that's a great tip if you want to do maybe clothing on your little dudes or any kind of stamp set to mask it off. Using that pen really works nicely. And now I'm not one to color an image like this in super detailed. I might do it every once in a while, but not super often. So I wanted to share some quick coloring methods to color these in. So here I'm just going in with my mini ink blending tool and some of the Simon Hurley Great Inks and doing some quick and easy ink blending. Here I'm starting out with Piggyback. If you see any new colors that you've seen in my release video, they're releasing it mid-February and they'll be available and I'll let you all know then. And then I'm going in with Rosy Cheeks and just doing a little bit of shading using the edge or corner of my ink blending tool. And then for the last color, which is Bee Sting, it's a little bit of a darker red, and I'm just adding lots of shading in here. And here I'm using the detail blending tools, and these are super helpful if you want to cover much smaller areas and not get ink everywhere. So I really love these detail tools, and I use them a lot when I'm adding shading, especially if I'm trying to do detailed coloring like this today. Those really help as well. Now here I'm going in with the color Psych, which is that lighter green. It's also a new color. And I'm just, again, using the corner of my blending tool, and I'm going to just shade in some of the leaves here. Now I'm overlapping it with some of that red, just to make sure that the colors blend. I don't really want to leave any white space in between, so just making sure there's lots of color here on the image. And then again, I'll go in with the detail blending tool, and start shading using some greens like Overzealous. I'll use a little bit of Later Gator, and some Tropical Tango, which is a new color. Now, one thing that I wanted to stress is you can't be too particular where you want all these colors. They're going to you can kind of control where they go, but they're going to overlap a little bit. You might have some colors mixing together, but I really encourage that. It creates a super cool look in the end. You'll see some of the green overlaps with the red, and then you'll see when I add a little bit of other colors in here, they kind of overlap, but it creates a really cool look, and almost like you weren't really trying to color it in too much. And I also went outside of the lines with this. You're going to have to allow that. Now I ended up cutting it out in the end, but if you wanted to just leave it, I think it looks really cool just how it is blended off into nothing. And if you need a little help blending them, I use the detail blending tool, and then you can flip it over to the other side since they're double-sided, and you could blend it out with just the clear sponge, and I find that that helps as well to get some colors blended if they're not. And then I went in with a little bit of Crown Me to finish everything off. And then I rubbed off the excess ink from the clear embossing, and it creates that nice bright white image again. So I love how this looks once it's all blended. And if you want to add a little bit of texture and maybe some movement with the color to make it look like it was kind of watercolored, you can spray down some water and react with my inks as well. Now here I went in and I fussy cut this out. Now this is totally your choice. If you wanted to just leave it, that would be a totally beautiful card, but I thought I wanted to fussy cut it to add it onto a card base, but you could totally skip this step if you wanted to. Now I cut right along the edge, and if you guys don't like fussy cutting, I find one big game changer in it are these Fiskars spring assist scissors. It makes your hand less tired and it makes it easier to cut it on a smoother line, I find. So I really recommend these if you're struggling with fussy cutting. But I find that the outside of the line ink blending, I actually like the look of that, so if you wanted to leave it, you totally could. Now to finish off the card, I'm going to ink it up with the Painted Lines background stamp, and I'm going to ink it up with my Woof colored ink, which is a gray, and stamp it onto Perfect Gray cardstock, and then I'm going to add that right onto my card base there. So I love how that background just really finishes off this card, makes it all complete, and really gives it that stunning look in the end. Now there's this also stamp set that called Favorite Card Maker from the Gray Muse, and I love this one too. It has just some encouraging sentiments for your crafty friend, but also just anybody who needs a pick-me-up. I love these little sentiments, especially to go along with this larger hugs. If you want kind of a secondary sentiment, this really works for that. And so this one just says, I'm so happy to have you in my life, which I love. So I added that onto my card, and I really love how everything turned out. You can really tell how simple that coloring was. It doesn't take long, and you end up with a beautiful card in the end. So for my next one, I'm going to do some ink smooshing. This is more of a messier way to add color to your project, but I love the look in the end. So you can see those are the colors that I used on my project, and I'm just smooshing them onto my desk surface. And if you guys have been here for a while, you know that I just use my desk, but a craft sheet works really great, or the glass mat to protect your surface. This is a laminate surface, so it's going to resist the ink, but I don't recommend trying it at home. So I'm going to spray my inks with water so they react, and then I'm going to start lifting it up onto my surface. And you can see I'm just going in really simply and adding the color, and just kind of tapping it pretty lightly so that you get kind of touches of those colors here and there on your card. Now you could totally leave it here, but I like to add several layers to make it more dimensional and to add lots more colors and splatters of color. So I make sure that it's nice and dry in between layers, and that's going to allow new layers to form and not really like blend with the other colors beneath it. So it's going to give you more water droplets and more texture if you want that. So then I'm going in with more colors. I'm going in with a little bit of Clear Skies and Triple Berry, and then I'm going to spray those and start smooshing those onto my card as well. And I went in on the edges and also just tap really lightly. The lighter the touch, the lighter kind of amounts of color you'll get in those areas, and you won't have a really overwhelming splatter of purple in the center. So whenever people are in my classes too, I always tell them just tap it really lightly on your surface, barely give it a touch, and you'll get a really cool background in the end. And then I added some little water droplets, and that's going to create a really cool watercolor looking background in the end. And if you're not in love with it, you can always flip it over, but I loved this background, so let's keep moving with it. Now you'll notice there are some white areas in here, and since I'm doing some white heat embossing, all I had to do to fill those in is just grab my mini ink blending tool with some of the colors that we used today, and then I'm just going to blend those on the edges to fill in some of those colors. That's a really good tip if you don't want any white space and you're having a hard time filling in it all without making muddy colors. Just going in with your blending tool really helps to fill everything in, which I love. So once I'm done adding all those colors in onto the edges, I'm going to move on to doing some stamping. So I've left that image in my MISTI. If I want to make a set of note cards, I can do it all in the same area by using my MISTI and stamping it in the same place, which I love. I'll add some pressure there, and then I'm going to do some heat embossing. And this time I'm using white embossing powder. I'm just going to sprinkle it on top, and then I'm going to heat set that once it's all done. Now the thing I love about this is we made a super simple background, and we're just using that background as a backsplash for that larger image. So basically, we didn't have to spend any time coloring anything in. You could use backgrounds that you already created, which is really awesome, really simple, and a great way to use up your colorful backgrounds. And again, I did the same thing with the embossing pen here, where I colored in those spots and then went in with the white heat embossing to fill it all in. And I find that that just adds a little bit of, kind of makes that word stand out in the center if you want it to. And then I'm going to go around and cut it out. Now this time I added a little bit of a border, which I find is a little bit easier to do, so that's another great way to cut it if you want an option like that. But again, you could totally leave that full background, and I think it looks beautiful either way. So I added it onto a white card base here, and there is the finished card. I love the two different ways that we did that coloring today, both very simple and easy ways to color instead of going in and doing all the details. They're really quick ways to add color, and I think they're both stunning in the end. Now, the Gray Muse is also really well known for her pins, and I absolutely love Rubina's pins. Her creativity with them are super awesome, and I'll definitely be wearing some at the show at Creativation. I gotta bring some of my favorites there. So one thing that I love about her pins is some of them are interactive, so you can see that cool spinner there, but they're all for creative people. So she's got lots of encouraging pins, some encouraging sayings, lots of things with ink swatches and craft supplies, which I absolutely love. So here are what the pin backings look like. They're just the regular backings, and then they have these two stoppers so you can put that in the back and make sure things stay in place. I like to put it on this kind of letter board, and I have that in the background of my videos. And here are the cool kind of interactive pins you can get. So this one is a bubble mailer with the card coming out of it. Here's a paint palette, which I love, that flips open with that hinge. So super cool, super creative, and I love that she's kind of pushing the boundaries with the pins. And then this last one is a paper trimmer. Like, how cute is that? And it all moves. So I'll have all her links down below so you can check out all her pins and her stamps as well. Alright, I hope you guys really enjoyed that video, kind of showing the ink blending and the ink smooshing way with some heat embossing to color in a more detailed image and still make it look really beautiful. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, leave me a comment down below letting me know which card was your favorite, and also, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another card making and crafting video like this one from me. I'll see you guys all very, very soon for another card making and crafting video. Have a great day. Bye!